Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's to explore the source materials shaping the next frontier of technology. We want to distill these complex ideas into the knowledge you need.
That's right.
And today, we're moving past all the consumer hype around, volatile cryptocurrency.
Yeah, forget the speculation for a moment.
We're focusing on its industrial engine, distributed ledger technology, or DLT, what most people just call blockchain.
And that's a really critical distinction to make right up front. We're cutting through that noise to look at the tangible adoption, the stuff that's actually happening at the institutional level,
Right.
specifically in global finance and in international trade. We pulled some key reports that big names like MasterCard, Ava Labs, the European Parliament, KPMG,
Okay.
to really show how DLT is shifting from being like a novelty to becoming truly foundational infrastructure.
So we're not talking about market buzz here.
Yeah.
We're analyzing why the world's biggest institutions are actually investing serious money and effort into this.
Exactly. And the core promise, when you strip it all back, it's surprisingly straightforward.
Yeah.
DLT creates a secure shared record and, crucially, one that's immutable, meaning it can't be changed later in environments where, frankly, trust between participants is often low.
Yeah.
Or, maybe non-existent.
Right, like competitors who have to cooperate somehow.
Precisely. Our sources really emphasize this. DLT is built for these situations.
Yeah.
Think about a massive shipping consortium with competing carriers or banks that need to settle transactions but don't inherently trust each other. They all need a single neutral source of truth to do business efficiently.
Okay, so let's unpack the mechanics a bit. How does this transformation actually work? When we talk DLT, people hear decentralization, immutability, security, accountability.
All true. But the real game changer, especially for institutions, it's the smart contract.
Ah, okay.
Smart contracts are like the utility layer on top of the ledger. Ethereum pioneered this years ago, right?
Yeah.
It allowed this chain of blocks to move beyond just storing data.
To actually automating interactions.
Exactly.
So these are basically self-executing bits of code stored right on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And once some predefined condition is met, say a payment confirmation comes through or a sensor says a shipment arrived,
The code automatically kicks in and performs an action, like transferring ownership of an asset, releasing funds.
all without needing a middleman to verify it. That automated, kind of trustless execution, that's the engine behind things like DeFi, decentralized finance apps like Uniswap or Aave.
It's the foundation, yeah. Now, if you're a bank, you love that automation. But you also need speed, serious speed.
And this is where the public blockchain story often gets tricky, right?
It really does. You look at Bitcoin, the classic example using proof of work, its latency is, well, pretty staggering for finance. We're talking maybe a handful of transactions per second.
And final confirmation can take, what, 10 minutes? An hour sometimes?
Easily. Which
Yeah.
is just unusable for high-volume finance.
Yeah, completely crippling, especially when you compare it to traditional payment systems. Visa, for instance, handles, what, 2,000 transactions per second routinely?
Routinely. And it can peak way higher, maybe 10,000 TPS. So if DLT is going to replace or even just augment the existing financial rails,
It absolutely cannot be that slow.
and that speed limitation is precisely why many enterprises, well, they tend to steer clear of those slow public chains like Bitcoin or even early Ethereum for certain high-throughput tasks.
Right. So this raises a key question for you, the listener. Just how decentralized are these big institutional blockchain solutions, really?
That's the nub of it. They often use something different.
They use permissioned blockchains, don't they? Things like R3 Corda or Hyperledger Fabric.
Precisely. These aren't open to everyone. They're controlled by a known group, a consortium of banks, say, or a specific organization.
Okay.
And because all the participants are known, identified, accountable, they can use much more efficient ways to agree on transactions, much faster consensus mechanisms.
Which solves the scalability and latency problems you see on the public chains.
It does. But what's really crucial for you to understand here is the trade-off. In the enterprise world, they're often sacrificing that pure open decentralization.
For speed, for control, and importantly, for regulatory compliance.
Exactly. In essence, these permission systems are highly secure, shared databases with automated rule enforcement built in, which is exactly what a global bank or logistics network actually needs.
Right, that makes sense. That institutional readiness, that mix of speed, control, accountability that takes us straight into the next massive area. asset tokenization,
Oh yeah, this is huge.
bringing real-world value onto the blockchain. We're talking about digitizing basically everything: property rights, art, stocks, bonds, commodities.
The motivation here is just immense. You look at the research cited in our sources, BCG, for example, they estimate that just tokenizing currently illiquid assets.
Stuff that's hard to buy and sell quickly now.
Exactly. That alone could be a staggering, wait for it, $16 trillion opportunity by 2030.
16 trillion. Okay, that's a number that gets everyone's attention. Every major financial institution has to be looking at that.
Absolutely.
So what makes it so compelling for investors, for the institutions?
Well, tokenization allows for structures that were just really difficult or inefficient before. Think about fractionalized ownership,
Owning just a small piece of something expensive.
right, which dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for things like commercial real estate or fine art.
Yeah.
It potentially unlocks these illiquid markets, improves price discovery because you can open up local assets to global investors much more easily.
So better access, maybe better prices.
And for the asset managers, it means operational efficiency, potentially a better experience for their investors, and honestly, new revenue streams.
And this isn't just theory, right? We're seeing major players actively building this stuff out. I mean, BlackRock's CEO, Larry Fink, has been very vocal. He stated publicly that tokenization is the next generation for markets.
You definitely see it with JP Morgan Chase, too. They've got their JPM coin running it in their Onyx system for things like collateral settlement.
Right.
And they co-led a big proof of concept with Apollo, showing how you could tokenize alternative assets like private equity funds.
And Citi as well, under that Singapore project.
Yeah, Project Guardian in Singapore. Citi demonstrated a bilateral FX quote application, basically foreign exchange, leveraging customized DLT, specifically Avalanche L1s in that case.
Okay, so the big institutions are definitely adopting the tech, but it sounds like they're being quite selective about the platforms. Often these customized enterprise chains, you call them evergreen L1s.
That's a term used, yeah. And what's fascinating here is the technical choice they're making. While the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, is kind of the de facto standard for smart contracts out in the public world.
Institutions are often customizing these chains pretty heavily.
They are. They want control. Control over regulatory features, control over who can see the data, maybe even control over how transaction fees work.
Tailoring it to their specific needs.
Exactly. This customization is the key to making DLT work within complex, sometimes conflicting, global regulatory environments. They want the automation, the efficiency of smart contracts, but they need it on their terms.
That drive for efficiency, for automation, it's not just limited to financial assets, is it? It applies just as much, maybe even more, to international supply chains.
Oh, absolutely. Let's pivot to global trade and logistics, because the numbers here are just mind-boggling.
Our sources cite this incredible figure. A single international trade transaction can involve something like 36 original documents.
And potentially 240 copies.
It's insane.
It's an administrative nightmare. You just have to pause and think about the sheer amount of friction, the cost, the potential for errors built into that mountain of paper.
Yeah.
And that is exactly where DLT can make a massive difference because it provides that shared, secure, unchangeable ledger we talked about. It boosts transparency and automation among parties who might even be competitors.
A classic example here is trade finance, right? Specifically, the letter of credit, the LC.
Yeah, the bedrock of a lot of trade. Traditionally, these are super paper-intensive. Processing can take anywhere from 5 to 10 days.
That's 5 to 10 days where goods are just sitting, waiting for paperwork to clear, inventory costs racking up.
Exactly. But blockchain platforms have shown they can slash this time. We've seen pilots using systems like R3's Corda reduce that LC processing time down to like 1 day.
Wow.
Even faster in some cases. There was a BBVA pilot that got it down to just 2.5 hours.
That's a revolutionary speed increase.
It really is. And it's not just about saving admin costs.
Yeah.
It helps chip away at that massive global trade finance gap, estimated at $1.5 trillion.
Which disproportionately hits smaller businesses, SMEs, right? They're the ones who can least afford to have capital tied up waiting for paperwork.
Precisely. And you see similar potential gains in cross-border payments. The current system, relying on correspondent banks and intermediaries, it's slow and expensive.
Takes days to clear, lots of fees shaved off along the way.
Right. DLT solutions, by cutting out many of those intermediaries, can process international transfers in minutes, potentially.
Yeah.
Deloitte estimated this could lead to a 40%, even 80% reduction in transaction costs.
Huge savings. And for consumers, or at least end users, the impact is maybe most visible in logistics and traceability.
Yeah, some really high-impact use cases there. We saw reports about Walmart using DLT.
For food traceability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tracing the origin of, say, pork in China in just 2.2 seconds, down from nearly a week using the old paper-based systems.
The implications for food safety, for recalls, for proving ethical sourcing,
Yeah,
they're massive.
absolutely. And again, these solutions like TradeLens, that partnership involving IBM and Maersk,
They use those permission consortium-controlled DLTs we talked about.
they do to digitize shipping documents, track containers in real time. It allows everyone in the supply chain, the shipper, the port, the customs authority, the trucking company, to see the same information instantly and react to changes or delays, instead of waiting for faxes or emails. It's about shared visibility.
Okay, so we've established massive progress, huge potential efficiencies, but now we have to address the elephant in the room, the hurdles. Despite all these benefits, global DLT adoption isn't simple. It needs massive coordination.
And the big one, regulatory clarity.
Hmm.
That's still very much a work in progress.
So what are the main barriers?
Well, you can kind of split them into two camps, technical and regulatory business challenges.
Okay.
Technically, interoperability is still a big issue. How do you get value or data to move smoothly between fundamentally different blockchains? Say, from an Ethereum-based system to one built on Solana or Corda. That's technically hard.
Different standards, different code?
Exactly. Now, to make implementation easier for businesses, you're seeing the rise of blockchain-in-a-box type services. Ava Cloud from Ava Labs is an example cited, aiming to simplify deployment for enterprises.
Okay, so tech is one piece. What about the regulatory side?
That's the truly global challenge. We don't have a comprehensive, unified global framework for DLT and digital assets. You see pockets of activity, like regulatory sandboxes in places like Singapore with Project Guardian, or the UAE, the UK, trying to define rules locally.
But nothing consistent worldwide.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And that leads us directly to this looming headache for financial institutions everywhere. Tax compliance, specifically the OECD's new framework.
Ah, yes, CARF, the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework.
Exactly. This is expected to start being adopted by countries from January 1st, 2026. And it's going to force a lot of financial institutions, maybe even ones that don't think of themselves as crypto players now, to become reporting crypto asset service providers.
Yeah.
RCASPs.
Okay, RCSPs. And what's the big change? You mentioned it disrupts traditional tax reporting.
It fundamentally does. Traditionally, banks report, say, your year-end account balance for tax purposes. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
CRF throws that out the window for crypto assets. Starting in 2027, it mandates transaction-based reporting.
Transaction-based. What does that mean in practice?
It means RCASPs won't just report a final balance. They'll have to report the aggregate gross amounts paid and received, the number of units involved, and the sheer number of relevant transactions.
For every customer.
Broken down by the type of transaction, like was it a purchase, a sale, a swap, and the type of crypto asset involved.
Wow, that sounds incredibly granular.
It is. It effectively turns these institutions into forensic accountants for every single crypto interaction their customers have. They'll need a data capture and reporting infrastructure far beyond anything they currently operate for traditional assets.
The implementation challenge, the cost for FIs to build that, it sounds immense. Billions, potentially.
It could be. And there's another tension here on the flip side of all that transparency CRF demands. There's a serious potential legal conflict brewing.
Which is?
The very nature of blockchain, its immutability, the fact that data, once written, is incredibly hard or impossible to alter.
Runs smack into data protection laws.
Exactly. Think about GDPR in Europe, with the consumer's right to be forgotten, or the right to have incorrect data rectified. How do you reconcile that with a ledger designed not to be changed?
That's a fundamental conflict.
It is. Regulators globally are still scrambling to figure out the legal standing, the legal equivalence for these digital assets and digitally signed documents stored on DLT.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what does this really mean for you, the listener? We've seen some staggering evidence here. DLT is clearly moving way beyond just crypto speculation.
Oh, definitely.
It's becoming indispensable infrastructure, it seems, for global finance, for trade, driven by these undeniable cost savings and efficiency gains. That $16 trillion opportunity seems very real.
It absolutely does seem real. But I think the crucial takeaway for everyone listening is this. DLT gets its efficiency by cutting out middlemen, by slashing paperwork, right?
Right.
But it replaces that old friction with a new layer of complexity. And that complexity is the desperate need for consistent global governance, for shared legal standards.
Everyone needs to agree on the rules of the road.
Precisely. Until the world agrees on how to regulate these digital assets, how to legally recognize them across borders, the full potential, that $16 trillion and beyond, it remains somewhat gated. Still huge, but gated.
That's the tension we keep seeing, isn't it? Institutions are picking these permission chains because they offer speed and that regulatory control they need right now, which makes perfect sense for them.
Yeah.
But if DLT has this power to lower barriers for smaller businesses, the SMEs, and maybe promote ethical sourcing, things that sound really inclusive,
That's positive forces.
then the technology itself has to remain accessible somehow. So the provocative thought we want to leave you with today is this. If the most efficient, most institutionally viable DLT infrastructure ends up being permissioned, requiring technical know-how and, crucially, an invitation to join the network, does this amazing technology risk replacing the old financial gatekeepers with a new set of digital ones? Could it actually create a new, maybe even wider digital divide between those who are in the network and those left outside? Something for you to really ponder as you watch these powerful systems continue to evolve and reshape our world.